Welcome to your deep dive. Today we're going to be cracking open a classic, and it's all about your thoughts, really. The Power of Thought, James Allen's As a Man Thinketh.
Mm.
It's a book that's over a century old,
Yeah?
but trust me, the wisdom in this thing, it's as relevant today as it ever was.
Absolutely.
Get ready, because we're going to be exploring how your thoughts, they shape not only who you are, but like your circumstances,
Yeah.
your life. And joining me on this journey, we have an expert
Why?
who can really help us unpack Alan's incredible, powerful ideas.
Well, what's so fascinating about James Allen is that he doesn't just preach positive thinking.
Mm.
Like a lot of those,
What?
self-help gurus,
Mm.
he really delves into the how, like the actual mechanics of how thought creates reality.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, he kind of kicks things off with a pretty bold statement.
Yeah.
As a man thinketh in his heart,
Yeah.
so is he. It's like he's saying our thoughts are the architects of our character,
Right.
not just these fleeting things in our minds.
Right. And he takes it a step further by saying that we're not just victims of our thoughts, we're gardeners.
Yeah.
So we can cultivate our minds. We can weed out the negative thoughts,
Yeah.
nurture the positive ones.
That gardening analogy, I think, is that's really resonating with me because I've noticed, like, when I catch myself, spiraling into negative self-talk, it's like those weeds.
Yeah.
They're choking out, like, any potential for growth.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a great example of what Alan's getting at. And, he even says that suffering is the direct result of what he calls wrong thought.
Okay.
Basically just negative, unproductive thinking.
Oh, okay.
And then on the flip side, joy and peace,
Yeah.
because it comes from cultivating pure thoughts.
It makes you wonder if we're all just walking around with these mental gardens, right?
Right.
Like, some overgrown with negativity.
Exactly.
And others are blooming with possibility. But how does this thinking influence our, like, actual circumstances?
Right.
I mean, can changing our thoughts really change reality?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because Alan argues that our external reality, like what's happening around us, is a mirror reflecting our internal state, what's happening inside of us.
Right.
He says that we attract what we are inwardly more than what we simply want.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a powerful concept. It's like we're, broadcasting a certain frequency with our thoughts. And that frequency is attracting similar experiences into our lives.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And to kind of illustrate this, Alan, he presents a few scenarios.
Okay.
So imagine, like, a man who is struggling financially,
Right.
desperately wants a better life,
Of course.
but he continues to shirk work,
Yeah.
and he deceives his employer.
Mm-hmm.
Alan would say that he's focusing on the lack and not on the actions that could actually create abundance.
It makes me think of those, self-help gurus who tell you to visualize wealth, but you can't just, like, sit on your couch,
Yeah.
right? And just expect money to fall from the sky. Like, there needs to be action
There needs to be action.
behind that thought.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And Alan would probably say that this man's actions are stemming from these deeper negative beliefs
Mm-hmm.
about himself and his worthiness of prosperity.
So it's not just about thinking positive thoughts. It's about, like, examining the beliefs that are driving our actions.
Absolutely.
And if those beliefs are, like, rooted in negativity, it's no wonder that our circumstances might reflect that.
Right. Exactly. It's about understanding the connection between thought and belief and action. And for Alan, that connection is key
Okay.
to changing not just our inner world, but our outer world as well.
This is pretty mind-blowing, but it also makes me wonder if our thoughts are so powerful, do they impact our physical well-being?
That's a great question.
Do.
Because Alan was actually ahead of his time in exploring the mind-body connection. She really believed that the body is a servant of the mind, responding to our thoughts in very profound ways. He even suggested that fear and anxiety, they weaken the body.
Yeah.
And impure or negative thoughts can actually poison our system.
That sounds a bit extreme. Is there any scientific basis for that?
Well, in Alan's time, the science wasn't there yet.
Right.
But today, we have a whole field of study called psychoneuroimmunology,
Okay.
which explores the link between our mental and physical health.
Right.
And studies have shown that chronic stress, which is often fueled by negative thoughts, can suppress your immune system, making us more susceptible to illness.
So it's not that our thoughts are magically causing disease.
Right.
It's that our mental state can create a physiological environment,
Exactly.
that's either good for our health or
Right.
makes us more vulnerable.
Exactly. Alan might not have had the scientific language to explain it, but he intuitively understood this powerful connection between thought and the body.
Right.
And he even offered examples. Like, he contrasts a 96-year-old woman with a youthful face, attributing it to her, like, sunny disposition.
Wow.
And then he contrasts that with a middle-aged man, prematurely aged by his constant negativity. Yeah.
It's amazing how much he was able to kind of like intuit
Right.
about the mind-body connection way before science.
Oh, that's
really,
Yeah.
back it up.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to see how this all fits together.
Yeah.
Our thoughts shape our character, our actions,
Yeah.
circumstances, even our health. It's a lot to process.
It is. And we're just scratching the surface here, but the good news is that Alan, he doesn't just leave us with these profound ideas.
Right.
He offers us a path forward,
Okay.
a way to harness the power of thought,
Okay.
to create a life that's both meaningful and fulfilling.
See, that's what I'm really interested in, is the practical application of all this.
Yeah.
If our thoughts are so powerful, how do we actually use that power
Right.
to create positive change in our lives?
That's what we'll delve into next time.
Okay.
But before we move on,
Yeah.
I'm curious, what's resonating most with you so far? What's standing out as particularly relevant to your own life? It's great that you're thinking about practical application, cause. For Alan, that's where the rubber meets the road.
He believed that thought without purpose, well, it's like a ship adrift at sea.
I've definitely felt that sense of being adrift. Like when I lack a clear sense of purpose, it's like all that mental energy, it just has nowhere to go.
Alan would say you're spot on. He emphasizes the importance of having that central purpose in life. It could be, a spiritual calling, a worldly ambition, or even mastering a small task. The key is that it provides direction, a guiding star for your thoughts and actions.
So it's less about the what of the purpose and more about having that direction, that North Star.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the real power of thought comes into play.
Alan believed that thought allied fearlessly to purpose becomes creative force.
Wow.
He saw fear and doubt as the biggest obstacles to achieving anything worthwhile.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. I know I've held myself back from pursuing certain goals because of fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, even fear of success sometimes.
It's a common human experience.
Yeah.
But Alan would argue that we can't let fear paralyze us.
Right.
He saw courage not as the absence of fear, but as the willingness to act in spite of it.
That makes sense. It's like that saying, courage is not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it.
Exactly.
Feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Precisely. And when we combine that courage with clear purpose,
Right.
Alan believed we tap into an almost unstoppable force. He saw achievement in any area of life as the direct result of focused thought, unwavering purpose, and consistent effort.
Sounds like a pretty simple formula,
Right.
but I imagine it's a lot harder to put into practice.
Yeah.
It must be more to it than just setting a goal and thinking positive thoughts.
Right. You're right. There's a lot of inner work involved. Alan places great emphasis on personal responsibility, on becoming masters of our inner world. He challenges us to move beyond seeing ourselves as victims of circumstance
Okay.
and embrace the idea that we are, in a very real sense, creators of our own reality.
That's a big responsibility.
It is.
But it's also incredibly empowering.
Right.
If we truly have that much agency,
Yeah.
then the possibilities are limitless.
And that brings us to one of the most inspiring aspects of Alan's work, the power of vision. He believed that dreamers are the saviors of the world.
Wow.
He saw vision as the seed of all great achievement.
So it's not enough to just have a purpose. We also need to cultivate a clear vision.
He'd say that's essential.
Okay.
I mean, think about Columbus, right?
Yeah.
Discovery America.
Right.
Because he held that vision of a new world. Copernicus, revealing a wider universe because he dared to imagine a multiplicity of worlds.
Right.
Even Buddha,
Yeah.
achieving enlightenment because he envisioned a spiritual world of perfect peace. These are all testaments to the power of vision.
Those are some pretty lofty examples, but I can see how having a clear vision would provide that extra fuel.
Right.
Keep us going, especially when things get tough.
Alan uses an analogy from nature
Okay.
to illustrate this point.
Yeah.
He says, our visions are like seeds.
Oh,
We
okay.
plant them in the fertile ground of our minds, nurture them with focused thought and consistent effort,
Yeah.
and watch as they blossom into reality.
That's a beautiful image. Makes me think of all the things that I've, you know,
Yeah.
achieved in my life. They all started as like the seed
Right.
of an idea.
And what's even more remarkable is that Alan believed that this creative power, it's accessible to everyone. The universe doesn't play favorites.
Right.
It operates according to laws,
Right.
just like the law of gravity. In the realm of thought, the law is that like attracts like.
So if we're constantly thinking negative thoughts,
Right.
we're more likely to attract negative experiences.
Exactly.
But if we cultivate positive, empowering thoughts, then we attract positive experiences, opportunities, relationships.
Exactly. It's like we're broadcasting a certain frequency with our thoughts, and that frequency is attracting similar experiences into our lives.
Okay.
And this is where Alan's message becomes incredibly practical. He believed that understanding this law of attraction could empower us to consciously create the lives we desire.
It's almost like we're magnets, right? Drawing to ourselves the things we focus our attention on.
Yeah.
But what about those times when life throws us curveballs?
Right.
When we face challenges and setbacks that seem completely out of our control?
Alan acknowledged that life isn't always smooth sailing.
Right.
He believed that challenges are an inevitable part of the growth process, but he also emphasized the power of choosing our response
Okay.
to those challenges.
So it's not about avoiding hardship altogether. It's about learning to navigate those difficult times
Oh, right.
with grace and resilience.
Precisely. And that's where the concept of sacrifice comes into play.
Okay.
Alan believed that achieving anything worthwhile requires a certain level of sacrifice. But he wasn't talking about sacrificing material possessions
Okay.
or external comforts.
What kind of sacrifice did he have in mind?
He was talking about sacrificing our lower, more self-centered thoughts and desires. It's about choosing to focus on thoughts that empower us, that uplift us,
Right.
that move us closer to our goals.
So it's about that internal process of refinement,
Yes.
of weeding out the negative thoughts, cultivating the positive ones.
Exactly. He saw sacrifice as an act of aligning our thoughts with our deepest values and highest aspirations. It's about making choices that are congruent with the person we want to become, the life we want to create.
That makes me think of, the idea of delayed gratification. Sometimes we need to forego immediate pleasure or comfort
Right.
to achieve something more meaningful.
That's a great example of what Alan's getting at. And he believed that when we make those choices, when we commit to sacrificing our lower impulses for the sake of something greater, the universe conspires to support us.
That's a powerful idea. It's like we're tapping into a universal force
Right.
that wants to help us succeed, but we need to meet it halfway, right? By making choices that are
Yeah.
in alignment with our highest good.
But remember, Alan didn't just preach these ideas, he lived them. He overcame immense personal challenges to achieve success as a writer and a philosopher. He was living proof that these principles could be applied to create real, tangible change.
It's inspiring to hear that he wasn't just some, armchair philosopher, but someone who walked the talk. But we've talked a lot about the power of thought, the importance of purpose and vision, the need for sacrifice, resilience. Where does serenity fit into all of this? Can we really achieve all these things and remain calm and peaceful at the same time?
It's a great question. It seems like achieving our dreams, like that often involves a lot of hustle and striving,
Yeah.
which doesn't exactly sound peaceful.
Did Alan think that we could have both ambition and serenity?
He did. He absolutely did. In fact, he considered serenity to be a beautiful jewel of wisdom, not a byproduct of success, but like a key ingredient.
Okay.
For Alan, serenity wasn't about being passive or emotionless.
Yeah.
It was about self-mastery.
Yeah.
Having that inner strength to navigate the ups and downs of life without getting swept away.
It makes me think of like a surfer
Yeah.
riding a wave. They're not fighting the ocean, but flowing with it,
Yeah.
Even when it gets choppy. Is
Right.
that kind of what he meant by serenity?
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
He even compares serenity to an island of blessedness in a turbulent ocean. So you're still in the ocean experiencing the waves, but you found that stable ground within yourself.
Right.
And Alan believed that this inner stability, wasn't just good for our well-being.
Yeah.
It actually made us more effective out in the world.
So it's not just about feeling good, it's about performing better, even in challenging situations.
Precisely. Alan observed that people are drawn to those who radiate calmness
Right.
and stability. They sense a strength
Yeah.
and wisdom in that kind of demeanor,
Yeah.
which inspires trust and respect.
Right.
He even suggests that this calm presence can be a huge advantage, like in the business world.
Yeah, that really resonates with my own experience. The leaders I admire most, they aren't the ones who like yell and panic when things go wrong, you know?
Right.
They're the ones who stay cool under pressure.
Yeah.
And that makes everyone around them feel more confident and capable.
Yeah. It's like their calmness creates this ripple effect,
Right.
influencing the entire team or organization.
Yeah.
But how do we actually cultivate that kind of serenity? Alan wasn't just about lofty ideals.
Right.
He was very practical in his approach.
So what were some of his tips for developing that inner island of blessedness?
He emphasized the importance of self-control, learning to kind of govern our thoughts instead of letting them run wild.
Okay.
He saw our minds as powerful instruments
Yeah.
that need to be trained, just like athletes train their bodies.
Hmm.
It's about becoming more aware of our thought patterns and making conscious choices about which ones we feed.
Yeah, I used to be like a champion warrior, constantly like catastrophizing about things that never actually happened.
Right.
But learning to identify those negative thought loops and challenge them has made a huge difference in my ability to stay calm and focused.
That's a great example of how we can apply Alan's ideas,
Yeah.
in our own lives. It's not about pretending to be happy all the time.
Right.
It's about developing the mental muscle to
Yeah.
choose more empowering thoughts,
Yeah.
especially during challenging times.
And it sounds like that's an ongoing process,
Absolutely.
not a destination.
Alan saw self-mastery as a lifelong journey
Yeah.
of self-discovery and growth.
Oh, right.
He believed that the more we practice self-control, the more natural it becomes.
Right.
And the greater our capacity for peace and fulfillment.
I'm starting to see how all of Alan's ideas kind of weave together the power of thought, the importance of purpose and vision, the need for sacrifice and resilience, and the cultivation of serenity. They all point to the same truth. We have far more control over our lives
Right.
than we often realize.
That's a beautiful summation of what As a Man Thinketh is really all about.
Yeah.
It's an empowering message, reminding us that we are not merely products of our circumstances,
Yeah.
but architects of our own destinies.
It's definitely been a thought-provoking deep dive for me, and I hope our listener feels the same way. We've covered so much ground, from understanding the mind-body connection to the importance of aligning our thoughts with our deepest values. But if there's one key takeaway I'd want to leave you with,
Yeah.
it's this: never underestimate the power of your thoughts.
They are the seeds of your reality.
So choose them wisely. And if you're ready to explore these ideas further and start applying them in your own life, I highly encourage you to check out James Allen's As a Man Thinketh.
Yeah.
It's a book that can truly change your life if you let it.
Until next time, happy thinking.